Open the pod bay doors.
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Traveler Podcast. I'm your host, the intrepid movie explorer himself, Chris, and I am so excited to have you listening to the very first episode of my latest podcasting adventure. And while technically this is the first episode in this podcast, this is more of an explanation of what this podcast is going to be all about. Because I know what you're thinking, what the hell is the Cinematic Traveler? Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone in between, I plan on bringing you reviews of new films in theaters or new films on streaming services. Hell, we might do some old movies. And if you're really, really lucky, we might do some ancient, old, classic movies as well. But the difference, and I know you're saying, oh my God, not another movie review podcast. But listen. The difference between me and the other ones, they give you their opinions on movies. I'm telling you facts about movies. If I go and tell you that a movie's bad, it is bad. If I tell you it's good, worth watching, worth your time. I don't want to waste your time. We have very little of it left on this planet Earth, and it seems like it's getting darker and darker out there as we get further into the future here. So hopefully I can save you a little time or make it worthwhile going to a movie theater, sitting down and watching some streaming services. To tell you a little bit about myself, as I mentioned, this is just another adventure for me in podcasting. I'm currently a co-host for the Just Go Watch podcast, and we do kind of the same thing. We do movie reviews there. However, that show, I do have two co-hosts, and we go full-on spoilers, and we tend to go on for an extended period of time. That is not what I'm planning to do on this podcast. But for those of you who may know, you may be familiar with this voice, but I used to have a solo podcast called the Movie Cycle Podcast, and I would do reviews on that as well. And I know what you're thinking, why are you starting a whole different title for a podcast? You know, I just thought it would be a little more fun to start from scratch and all the shit that I've learned from doing this in the past, and maybe I could have a better quality product for you. Plus, I like the challenge of trying to build this thing up and see where we can go from there. As far as the show, like I said, I did do the Movie Cycle podcast, and this is going to be sort of similar to that. If you are a previous listener, which if you are, I'm glad you're here, and let's go, right? I'm so excited. But what we're going to do following that formula is, as I mentioned, on Just Go Watch Me Talk Spoilers, this podcast, the Cinematic Traveler podcast, I am going to stay as spoiler-free as possible. I don't want to ruin anything for you to go watch a movie, so you can feel safe listening to this podcast, as well as I'm going to keep it short. I know Just Go Watch, there's three of us, so we have lots of things to say, whereas this one is just me, so I tend to like to keep it maybe 20, 30 minutes, so I don't want to waste your time. Time is precious. It's the one most precious commodity on the planet Earth. But there were some formulas that did work for me in the movie cycle, or at least I liked as a host. I am going to continue with three categories when I review movies: good, the bad, and the nitpicky. The good is the stuff that works in the movie. The bad is obviously stuff that doesn't. And the nitpicky will be stuff, little Hollywoodisms and whatnot. Not so much things that ruin the movie, just things that make me laugh. It could be anything about how they made the movie, or the way a character acts in situations, or just weird, bizarre things that pop into my weird and bizarre brain. Now, having said that, we are going to change things a little bit in that formula, and it's going to be new for this show, The Cinematic Traveler. First of all, every episode, I will give, again, a spoiler-free plot synopsis of the film, and in that, I am going to hide two movie quotes. Yes, two, not one, two movie quotes in each plot synopsis. And I would like for you all to participate, and if you can tell me what movie those quotes are from, you can message me on my social media that we'll get to in a moment, and we'll keep track. You'll get a point for each one you get right. Whoever has the most points at the end of the month will get to pick a movie for me to review. A special episode, really just for you. That's how awesome this podcast is going to be. However, I know at the very beginning of the show, there's probably only going to be one or two people that I will have to be at the mercy of their choices in films. Also, I do love horror movies, so I probably will gravitate to horror movies a lot. And I'm going to add what I'd like to call the gore score. And this will be something to tell you how gory a movie is. I know some people don't really like gore in their horror movies. They might like, psychological or supernatural thrillers and stuff like that. Some of us who are depraved, we love watching gore. So I'd like to add that into my horror movie reviews, again, to help you out so you know what you're going to watch, or at least have an idea of whether you want to sit in the movie theater and waste an hour and a half, 2 hours of your life. Another thing we're going to do maybe a little bit different. I actually did do this with the Movie Psycho podcast. I'm going to try again with this podcast and see if I can manage the time. But what I would like to do is have a special streaming surprise episode that will be towards the end of the week. I'm going to shoot for Thursdays. I think for my regular movie reviews, I'll probably do that Sunday or Monday. And then we'll have we'll have an episode at the end of the week. It'll just be about streaming movies. It'll be a surprise. It might be a new streaming movie, might be an old streaming movie, and it could be on any of the services that I currently have, one or two of which I actually do pay for. And that's really what the show's going to be about. You're going to hear a prime example of it very shortly, because I'm planning on releasing this, and then an actual episode right behind it, a review of whatever's coming out in the movie theater this weekend, so that you can get a taste of what you're in for, and you'll get addicted, and you will fall madly, madly in love with me. So really, this is a bit of a brief episode. Like I said, I just wanted to explain everything to you. As far as my social media is concerned, I will let you know I'm having a struggle with that. I've tried to reduce my social media intake over the last few months because it got to be a little bit time consuming. So I was a bit hesitant to even start a new podcast just because I didn't want to get involved in that. So right now, I only have an Instagram for this show, and it is, Cinematic Traveler Pod, or at Cinematic Traveler Pod. You'll know it because I have an astronaut head with popcorn coming out of it. So that sounds kind of weird, but it looks better than what it sounds. So you should be able to find it. Please find it, subscribe, follow, communicate. Tell me what you think about the show, and participate once I start going with the movie quote contest, because the more the merrier, as they say. So that sort of wraps everything up for me on this little brief episode. All I gotta say is, come on, join me. Let's go on a roller coaster ride through the cinematic universe. Punch it!